Hello, welcome to Finger Thinking. Today we're going to look at a fountain pen. In particular, we are going to unbox this brand spanking new Wordsworth and Black fountain pen. I apologise to anyone who thinks I'm pronouncing this incorrectly. There is an umlaut here, but I think if I try to get it correct, I'll just make it worse, so we'll stick with Wordsworth and Black. Now, as far as I'm aware, Wordsworth and Black is Amazon's house brand of fountain pens. They tend to be pretty cheap. They look quite stylish. This is my second one. My first one wasn't the biggest success, but we're going to start again with a brand new pen and see if the experience is any different. Now, the first thing I know, this is how it comes out of the box. It does have a bit of a scratch on the box here, but I'm not too worried about it. This is how it arrived from Amazon. There is a guarantee here that says, if you are not 100% satisfied with your Wordsworth and Black fountain pen, we are not happy either. We'll do everything in our power to ensure your full satisfaction, no questions asked. This is our promise to you. Now, what I did notice on the box is a little bit of conflicting information. I have a very multinational pen here. It's either designed in London and assembled in China, or it's designed in the USA and assembled in China. Either way, it's made in China. I'm not really fussed where it's designed, especially if it works. So let's open it up. I always like to use something to help me just open cardboard boxes like this, otherwise I end up ripping the corners. When I get a little bit particular, I like to keep my boxes. Everyone thinks I'm weird, but you know, I'm here making videos about fountain pens, so what can you do? Okie dokie. All right, so this is actually a pretty nice box. It's quite a sizable, I would imagine, just kind of fake leather box. Wordsworth and Black embossed on the front. If we open it up, all right. So we have ink, an instruction manual, and the pen in plastic. So if we take this out, all right, so I've ordered what they call just a turquoise. This is supposed to be a medium nib pen. So it's pretty plain. It's got a gloss enamel finish on it. If we open it up, all right, so I don't know if we can see the nib here. So it's actually quite a fancy nib. If I try and see that, good gracious, I think that says genuine iridium German. All right, so that suggests that this is indeed a German nib. We'll see if it writes like a German nib. This is supposed to be a medium. It's actually, looking at it, looks a little bit closer to a fine to me. Again, you probably can't, I don't know how well the camera is going to get that, but we'll be able to tell when we put some ink in it and start writing. Okay, so we have a gloss grip and a bit of a shoulder here, to be fair. So running my finger down here, that's actually quite a pronounced shoulder on the pen. We have the feed at the back of it. Nothing particularly fancy about this feed. The only text I can see is a bit of a G stamped in the back. Otherwise, it's a pretty plain pen. Now, this pen retails for $40 Australian on the Amazon Australia website. We've just had a week of sales, so it was $16, which is why I thought, you know what, I'm going to buy a new Wordsworth and Black pen and give it another go and see what happens. I'm not always the biggest fan of gloss body finishes, and I can already see that my hands, which I washed just before I started this video, are already starting to leave some finger marks on the body of the pen, but that may or may not bother you. So, ooh, it's actually got quite a firm seating of the cap, so we can hear that. Hopefully that means it's a decent seal. If I have a bit of a look here, there is a lip down inside the cap about 1/4 of an inch of the way in. We can see that there is a screw at the end. The screws obviously attaching this relatively plain finial, but hopefully that means that it won't dry out. Now, I do actually like just a pull-off cap. I really don't like screw caps because I'll pull the pen out, I'll write with a little bit, and I don't want to have to be screwing it back in every time that I put the cap back on it. Especially here in Australia, it can get really, really hot in summer, so it's a good habit to be putting your pens straight back in the cap. Otherwise, even kind of 30 seconds lying on the table and they can dry out, it gets that hot. All right, so let's have a look. If we actually take the back off, the pen comes with an inverter. Now, I have quite a few cheapy pens, and one of the things that I do like about the cheap Chinese pens is that they all come with inverters, whereas a lot of the more expensive or the European pens don't. You've got to pay an extra. Sometimes it's $6, sometimes it's $20 to buy the converter, which just sounds ridiculous. If we pull that off, so that's a converter, pretty standard converter. It does have a spring in it to shake your ink up and keep your ink actually flowing down just in case it gets stuck in a bubble at the top. This is pretty standard converter of all the Chinese pens that I own, and I own a few. I like a bargain. And we'd be surprised, you'd be absolutely surprised at how well some of the Chinese pens work. So, we're going to put this back together for a moment. And then, so the ink that it comes with, so it comes with its own brand, Wordsworth and Black ink. I have some of this in a bottle, and I really like it. They're blue. I love. Now, I'll save the review of the actual ink for another video, but if we open this up, all right, so we have 3 blue and 3 black cartridges. So for this, whoops a daisy, and they're a little longer than a standard cartridge actually, so they're kind of like, they look like they're a universal cartridge. From my experience with the last pen, they weren't. They're actually a little bit too big, but we will try in a second a few different cartridges with this pen. Now, I tend to like to refill my cartridges. I'm a big fan of getting the syringe out and refilling old cartridges. I do find converters a bit of a hassle. I've never had one leak. I just sometimes struggle to get the ink all the way in, and I end up with air bubbles, and that just annoys me. So before we actually put the ink in the pen, let's pull the cartridge out. I've got a couple of extra empty cartridges here, and I'm going to try and see if this pen does fit a different cartridge. Now, the first one that I have is a standard international cartridge. This is an empty Pelican cartridge. If we look, we can actually see that the Wordsworth and Black cartridge, just the end of it is a little bit narrower, the neck, though I think the little plastic ball bearing inside that seals it is about the same size, but let's see. So if we put the Pelican cartridge in here, oh, that actually seems to fit quite nicely, and we can actually see that that doesn't wheel around at all, which is excellent. That was a surprise. I don't remember that working like that with my other Wordsworth and Black pen. Now, whilst we're here, this is a Waterman cartridge. I like these because they're a little bit longer. They don't fit every pen, but okay, that's a little bit loose. I don't know that I'd actually be using the Waterman cartridge with this pen. And finally, I have an empty online cartridge. The online cartridges, I quite like them because they're universal on one side and Lamy on the other. And that's just, the Lamy is far too loose. So no to the Lamy and the Waterman cartridges. Yes to the standard international cartridge. Bit of a surprise, but excellent. So what we're going to do is we are going to get some paper, ink up this pen, and see how it writes. Okay, so we have our Rhodia paper that we are going to do our writing test with. We still have our pen in bits. What I want to do is put the pen together on camera and then see how long it actually takes for the ink to flow, because it varies from pen to pen. Sometimes it doesn't matter. I'm just curious. Okay, so that went in pretty easy. I didn't have to sit it down. I was just able to push it in. You would have heard the little ball bearing break. It seats quite nicely. It's very secure. So let's screw this back up and see how we go. I'll put the time in the corner of the video. I'll put it up here somewhere so we can see how long it's actually taken for the ink to get through. So now I'm just going to start doing a hatch to see how long it takes the ink to flow. Oh, immediately. So that took seconds. It probably started even sooner. I was yapping. So there we go. Wow, straight away. Let's see how we go. I apologise for the penmanship. I'm not an artist, I'm an engineer, so writing is not my strength. However, this is actually writing like a fine nib. So I mentioned earlier that when we look at the nib, it doesn't look like a medium nib. It looks a lot finer in my experience, and that's exactly what it writes like. Okay, so far so good. The pen, look, its weight's actually pretty reasonable. I don't like a super heavy pen, but then I like something that's heavier than a biro. So the step for that sentence there didn't seem to bother me. Where I hold the pen seems to be a little bit lower than this shoulder. But what we'll do is we'll just write out some Alfred Lord Tennyson poetry, see if we can get a better feel for the pen. Okay, 2 verses of that poem is enough for me to know that I like this pen. I don't love this pen so far. I like the size of the nib. So I don't like a typical medium nib. I find that even though my writing is quite large, a typical medium nib for me just is a little bit blurry. I like a little bit more definition between my letters. In some situations, I do like to write quite small. So the pen writes quite smoothly. I am using Rhodia paper, so if the pen doesn't write nicely on Rhodia paper, it's the pen, not the paper. There is some audible feedback from the nib, even though the actual motion of the nib is quite smooth on the page. I'm going to do a comparison. I do have with me just now a Lamy Alstar. So Lamy seems to be a pretty standard pen that most people will have access to compare. Even if you just have the standard Safari, the nibs are the same. It's just the feel of the aluminium that's a little bit different. And so just to compare side by side, I'm going to write a stanza in this and see what I think. Okay, after one stanza, I think I prefer my Lamy Alstar ever so slightly over the Wordsworth and Black. This is a fine nib. This is just using, I think it's a blend of online ink and Lamy ink. So I mentioned the online cartridges earlier. I like the cartridge, but I find their blue's a bit pale, so I put a bit of black in it to make it a bit darker. It's slightly lighter than this. The actual feel of the pen, or you've got your finger grips versus just a straight round grip section on this one. So they've got details in very different places. If you look at the nibs, then the Wordsworth and Black has a much prettier nib. There's engraving on the nib. It's much nicer to look at. They're about the same size. Line width test. The Lamy is slightly heavier, but they're much of a muchness. I think by accident, I think I've probably got a pretty fair comparison pen. So far so good. We will do a writing test on some cheaper paper, but for $16 Australian, which is, oh goodness, probably about $11 American, or £8, this is shaping up to be a pretty good buy. Okay, so this time we're going to try our pen on some very different paper. This is Amazon Basics paper. I have never used it before. I bought it in the same purchase that I bought the pen. I just thought I'd try some of the cheap Amazon standard goods that are getting increasingly easier to get in Australia. So the Amazon Basics paper, you've been able to get it in America for years, but not so much here. It actually feels quite nice. I'll be very interested to write on it. I've literally just taken this out of the plastic wrap. It has some perforations up here. It's printed double-sided. It is apparently 50 sheets to a pad, but let's see how we go. Okay, this isn't supposed to be a paper review, but far out. Look at that. There is no feathering on that. There isn't even any bleed through. That, ladies and gentlemen, is amazing paper. I'm pretty sure that a pack of 12 cost me... So I just checked, and a pack of 12 cost me $10.90 Australian. So even though these are only A5 pads, This one's an A4. Oh goodness, it's not even an A5. It's a little bit skinnier than an A5. But still, for a little notepad next to the phone, just on your desk, just a jotter, leave them in the kitchen, the car, wherever. Use them with your fountain pens. I'm impressed. Anyway, this review isn't about the paper, it's about the pen. So there was some audible feedback when writing with this pen. Hopefully the cameras actually picked that up. I'm going to write the same sort of thing again, but with the Lamy, just to compare. Okay, so even on the cheaper paper, it's the Alstar by a nose. However, these are way more expensive than this. So in Australia, these retail for $65. I picked this one up for $30 on Amazon. I buy a lot of stuff on Amazon. So this was $30, this is $16. They're both actually good buys. So what do we think? For a $16 pen, you could do worse. It's quite heavy. I haven't had an opportunity to travel with it yet. It is quite a forceful fit. So I'm not a weakling, and that does take some effort to actually get the cap off, which is a good thing because it means if you want to travel with it or throw it in your bag, it's less likely to come off on its own. The shoulder here, the step, doesn't bother me at all. I like the look of the pen. The fingerprints are a little disappointing, but they're not that noticeable. It's not like it's a polished chrome or silver pen. But yeah, I think this will definitely get some use. Don't know that I'd pay $40 for it. It's definitely a much better buy than the other allegedly medium pen. So I would compare this to the first Wordsworth and Black pen that I bought. However, it's in a box somewhere and I don't know exactly where it is. So that's why this is a single pen review, not a comparison. However, if I dig it out in the future, we can do a pens I don't like review on that. Otherwise, $16, you could do a lot worse. This cap, the more I do that, the more it actually does annoy me. After I've used it for a while, I will come back and do another review. Maybe I will find things I love about it or find some more things I don't like about it. We'll see how it travels. We'll see how long the ink lasts. We'll see if it actually dries out. So that's actually an interesting thing to note. So this Lamy Alstar, I haven't even taken the tag off it. So I haven't used this for 3 months, and this started straight away. So I pulled this out and did a quick little squiggle before I filmed this video, just to make sure that I didn't get the pen on camera and find that it was completely dried out. But it worked first go. So this pen's a bit of a gun. Still not my favorite pen, but certainly a favorite popular pen for a reason. The Wordsworth and Black, if it's on sale, give it a whirl. We'll come back to it in a future video and I'll let you know if it's definitely worth your money. If you are a pen nut and you don't have one and you have to have one, wait till it's on sale. Amazon seems to have Prime Days every couple of months now, so the worst you'll have to wait is a number of weeks before this is on sale again. It comes in a bunch of different colours. The Wordsworth and Black pens come in a number of different finishes. But you do have pot luck on the nib because it is This is a good nib, but it's very, very different to the other medium nib. But according to their box, Wordsworth and Black are only interested in your full satisfaction, no questions asked. So if you get a dud one, send it back. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see some more videos on analog productivity and creativity tools, please click the subscribe button, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.